You're listening to the Habs Banter podcast. This podcast is brought to you by all Habs and features co-hosts Corey DeZorno and Marc Lescutra. All right, what's up, guys? This is episode 4 of Habs Banter. I wish we knew the title of the episodes heading into the episode, but we don't figure that out until everything's final. So right now it's episode 4. Don't forget that you can subscribe to the videos on YouTube. You can subscribe to the audio on iTunes, and you can always search us on allhabs.net under the multimedia tab. Click on Habs Banter, which is pretty self-explanatory. How was your week, Marc?
Not bad. We got a little bit of snow here in Ottawa. I don't know if anyone heard. I mean, just open up Facebook on that day and you got a bunch of 100 meteorologists on your friend list.
Snowmageddon.
51 centimeters. It was terrible.
At least you don't have any laneway to...
No, it's actually funny. So I walked home that day because just getting out of downtown was crazy. And it was like about an hour and a half walk.
Yeah.
About halfway home, just walking down the street, and some lady's like, "Hey, finally the help has arrived." Like, I thought she was joking, and I kind of laughed because I was like, "Oh, yeah, that's funny." She's like, "No, seriously, I have like 3 extra shovels." I'm like,
So you helped her?
No, I had to go home and work from home, so I had to. Yeah, there's my. What was that pregame warm-up we were thinking about doing?
I can't.
Confessions or something like that?
Oh, yeah.
There's my confession of how I was a jackass this week. Well, I mean, I was on the clock, so that's my excuse. I'm sticking to it. It's not like it was an 80-year-old woman or something like that. I totally would have. If it was an elderly woman or elderly man, totally would have.
I have a snowblower.
Yeah, you do, because you're a man.
I used it when I got home, and then I had to use it again at like 8 o'clock. And one of my neighbors actually threw a bunch of snow, like used his snowblower and threw it like on the street, but like between me and my next door neighbor's house. So like there was this massive hill on half the street. Because I'm thinking what this guy was thinking was, well, whatever, the snowplow will just come by and push all the snow over, right? So he comes by and he pushes all the snow, but he pushes it in front of my laneway. So I got home from work the next day, and literally
devastating.
There was a hill that was like up to my neck. So I actually had to take a shovel and like chop half that down. But
sucks, man.
It's my wedding anniversary today.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Happy anniversary.
Yeah, thanks. I thought you would text me first thing since you were in my wedding and stuff, but it's cool.
Well,
it's cool. Like, I guess, like, whatever, you can just...
I shared that Facebook memory.
That's true. Anyway, so my wife and I celebrated our wedding anniversary back at the hotel in which we got married, which is called the Brook Street Hotel in Ottawa. If you guys don't know what it is, it's like in this industrial park that's in like the west end of the city. But it's a really, really nice hotel, and all the NHL teams stay there because the Ottawa NHL team plays in the middle of nowhere. So we went down for dinner Friday night. We got to the hotel or whatever. We went down for dinner. And I was kind of thinking, like, oh, the Detroit Red Wings are in town the next day. Like, oh, I wonder if, we'll see them just kicking around or whatever. Sure enough, we sit down at the table, and at the table next to us is Zetterberg, Nyquist, Tatar, and Brad Richards.
Question.
Yes.
Who had the nicest hair?
Oh, my God. Tatar had the nicest hair I've ever seen, man. This guy's hair was wild.
Oh,
anyway,
man.
Only point to this story is that, like, Thomas Tatar ordered tartar, and I was like...
Of course he did.
I was laughing so hard. Anyway, the next day, my wife and I woke up, and this is going to be like a long-winded story. I'm really sorry, and I'll try and condense it as much as I can. My wife and I decided that, we'll get up, we'll have breakfast, and then... She's like, we'll get a massage. I'm like, great. So this was like weeks before we left, right? She was kind of planning the whole day. I'm like, this is great. So she's like, yeah, we'll get a massage, blah, 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 blah. So she books everything and sends me the receipt. So I take a look at the receipt, and it's like 1 couples massage. I'm like, oh, nice. And then 2 pedicures. So I call her. I get her on the horn, right? I'm like,
get her on. She gets her on the horn.
So I get her on the horn. I'm like, hey, babe, are we like? Did you order 2 pedicures? Like, are you staying for like 2? Like, I don't get it. Like 1 for each foot. You know what I mean? Like, that's how stupid I am. And she goes, no, we're gonna get pedicures. And I'm like,
1 for each foot.
And I'm so rattled at this because I'm like, man, I've got some nasty feet. So I'm like, dude, like I can't have anybody looking at these things. Anyway, long and short of it is we're getting the massage, and I can't even enjoy the massage because I'm like, man, I'm just so shook about somebody actually having to touch my feet, right? So that's going on. I've got anxiety all through breakfast. I ate so much bacon to try and forget about it. And anyway, so we're like walking, and I got my robe on or whatever, and we're walking into like get the pedicure or whatever. And the lady's like, oh, okay, like here, put your feet in this like little tub thing or whatever. I'm like, okay, sure. And she starts going, and like right away, I'm trying to get the ice broken because I'm nervous, right? So I'm like, what do you think of my feet? and she's like, well, actually, they're pretty good for somebody who's never gotten a pedicure. So that sort of like took the edge off a bit. And then, anyway, once the pedicure was done, honestly, dude, I can't even tell you how incredible this thing was. Like, it was such a magical experience. Like, it was like,
I'm so happy for you.
I gotta go like every couple months. I'm going to get a pedi for sure.
Have you ever, like next time you're gonna like jump onto the mani pedi train?
Have you ever gotten one?
No, but I mean after this, honestly, real talk though. After this description, I'm so in. Like, can we do like maybe we can do like an all Habs meetup at a nail salon or something like that.
Or we could just do a bro date. That'd be fun.
Well, I mean, yeah, for sure.
But you probably don't need a mani because I've seen your hands.
Man, I have nice hands.
Those are some pretty hands.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. Speaking of nice hands, in a couple weeks, it's going to be the deadline. I guess in just over a week, it's going to be the trade deadline. So now would be a good time to just drop a little promo. We're going to probably do a little hot take, a condensed version of Habs Banter on the deadline, following the deadline, just to see just a hot take on what's happened, trades for the Habs, but also trades around the league. And we're going to have a special guest on the show, the most neutral sports fan in the world. Tim Rockburn will be joining us for that, and it's going to be great.
Yep.
AKA T-Rock.
Yep. He's a good friend of ours, and he's quite honestly just like, he is the most neutral fan I've ever seen in my entire life. It's actually frustrating. It bothers me so much that he doesn't cheer for any team because you actually just can't get into, like, I get into heated arguments with them because I just can't stand talking sports with them sometimes because it's just like, he's so neutral about everything.
And the worst part, when you're heated, he's still just sitting there like, well, yeah, I know, but like the point is...
and he's so articulate, too.
I know, it's the worst. He doesn't even, like, he'll never admit it, but he's one of the most articulate people.
And he gets his points across so well. Anyway, let's get going.
I guess we can get... Anywho, guys, if anyone could please give us another suggestion for something to do for a pregame warm-up. Like, we literally... It's been weeks now, and we can't think of anything else. Like, no. Please. So here we are again with What's That Word?
Yes. Your word is a bropaw.
Bropaw?
And bropaw is spelled B-R-A-U-X. Paw, P-A-S. Bropaw.
Bropaw. Okay. So not like a paw, like my nice paws.
No, that gives more context.
Yeah, no, that's good. The spelling is good because I would have gone in a different direction. Bropaw, I feel like it's kind of like when you break the bro code. Like you do something that like you shouldn't do to a bro. And it's kind of like a faux pas, but it's a bro paw.
Okay, you're wrong. It is. I'm going to read this thing. It is the rare awkward moment between two male acquaintances when the parting gesture gets fumbled. So occurs most often when one goes in for a bro hug and the other one wants to handshake. Something that you and I struggle with quite a bit.
It's pretty much like every time because we have so many different handshakes, so it's
that's
kind of like
it. You never know which one we're going for.
We're all about the bro paw, if anything. Like, do I go with the mustache? Do I go with the cam? Do I Bernie? I don't know.
I don't know.
I mean, normally Bernie is my favorite, but
yeah.
Anyway, right, that was a good one though. I like that. That one hits home.
Yeah,
that one hits home.
I felt the emotional connection with that one.
Yeah.
So it's,
absolutely. All right, so right off the bat, we're going to be talking, because obviously this week we can't go without talking PK Subban. Not only do we love PK, like PK is bae to us, obviously. But stuff went down this week. Michel Therrien called him out after a giveaway against the Avalanche. So we're actually going to have Chris Nardella on in a moment to discuss the whole PK situation, his relationship with Michel Therrien and the entire club. And Chris is a writer for All Habs, and you can find him on Twitter. And here we go.
All right, so we're here now with Chris Nardella, who is a staff writer for All Habs. We actually say Chris N's last name because we can pronounce it, because you remember last episode we had Chris H on, and we had no idea how to pronounce his last name.
2 weeks later, still no idea for the record. Maybe we should resolve that with Chris.
We probably should have asked him on the podcast. But nonetheless, we're here with Chris Nardella. We want to talk about Subban with you, Chris. And just to sort of recap, John Liu from TSN actually posted some audio from a radio clip that he did this week, and he sort of recapped the whole Subban situation. So he brought up the fact that Michel Therrien obviously has some bad blood with Subban. He talked about the contract dispute when Michel Therrien was first hired, how Subban missed, I think, the first 6 games of the season. He talked about when PK Subban was chewed out by Michel Therrien 24-CH. I don't know if you remember that clip. It was during an intermission. He and Marc were in the room with the assistants. And then he talked about the numerous benchings. He talked about the fact that he didn't back him for the Norris Trophy, that he didn't back him for the Olympics. And then he sort of recapped Subban, fumbled the puck in the offensive zone. He lost an edge. They come back on a 3-on-3. There was some missed coverage in the defensive zone, and sure enough, Therrien just blows up PK Subban in the media. So there's a recap for both you, Chris, and Marc. What do you guys think of the whole situation?
Well, I mean, it's obvious. You go back to Michel Therrien's days on. I'm not sure how many of the viewers watch L'Antichambre on RDS, but you go back to Michel Therrien's days on L'Antichambre. He didn't like PK Subban then. He ripped into PK Subban while he was on television. So it's clear that obviously in the actions, as you mentioned, the 24-CH clip, how he didn't back Subban in both the Olympics and the Norris race. It's obvious that he's not a fan of his playing style in terms of his all-around game. I mean, I'm not even sure Marc Bergevin is 100% in favor of the way he plays hockey, because that's not the way his style is coach. The coach he hired, and evidently his friend, that's not the way that they both, or more so Michel, tries to manage the hockey games.
Yeah, I think that's kind of I think there's like almost two separate issues, right, that need to be kind of figured out from a Habs perspective. It's like the dispute between PK Subban and Therrien, and then there's the whole conversation of like, does Marc Bergevin, is he sort of a believer in what PK brings to the team, or is he a believer in like, well, how the coach wants PK Subban to play, which is sort of a crazy debate.
Yeah, I mean, you look back, I can't remember who mentioned this on Twitter, but PK in his post-game press conference, or rather media scrum, after the win against Philadelphia, said, "Yeah, Jeff Molson made a commitment to me a couple years back when he signed that contract."
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of, I'm not sure if that was more of a slip-up or a telltale sign of the relationship between Marc Bergevin and PK Subban during that contract dispute. It got ugly at times, obviously. It dragged on for a long time, obviously, into training camp.
Those were some of the most nervous moments of my life, I think.
I remember when the arbitration hearing ended, and they both left, and they both just had sour looks on their faces, and everyone was just, PK's gone, it's over. And then going back to your Jeff Molson point, it was reported that by a number of people that Molson was the one who made the deal happen, apparently, and basically put his foot down, right? So it's not just like you said, Corey. It's not just a Therrien issue. It looks like it is a Bergevin issue.
Well, Marc, what do you think of the entire situation?
I mean, I think, to be honest, like Therrien said the next day he would have called out any player for what he did. But there's been so many bad plays this year. So many mishaps. Markov against Boston was a big one. His basically assist to Max Talbot was a rough one, and that was early in the game when the game was still in hand, and but I just don't buy that. He wouldn't have called out someone else for making that same play.
So let me ask you guys this: do you guys think that Therrien blowing up at Subban is just a build-up from the entire season? Do you think it's do you think frustration of this huge slump, the fact that he's more on the hot seat now more than ever? Do you think it's the frustration buildup of the entire season, or do you think it's PK Subban as an individual?
I think it's you look at. I mean, it's easier to hide frustration when you're getting W's. I mean, obviously in post-game press conference, Michel Therrien, it's obviously easy to be in a upbeat mood when you're winning games, and obviously it's been kind of the culmination of just atrocious hockey, both by the fault of the coach and players. I mean, there's no doubt there's a lack of concentration out there on the ice and lack of execution. But I just think that Michel Therrien always had this kind of vendetta against PK Subban. I'm not saying that he hates PK Subban. Under no circumstances am I saying that. I'm just saying I just don't think he's a fan of the way he plays the game. And now in his losing streak, I think he just blew up. I mean, it was this combination of frustration and losing and just coming out as just not hiding the way he feels anymore. And I think it's really easy to suppress that feeling when you're winning hockey games.
For sure. Absolutely. Ray Ferraro was asked on Twitter what he thought of Therrien's move to call out Subban on that one, on that play. Yeah. And it's ironic when you think about how Therrien called the play an individualistic play, but Ray Ferraro's word for it as a former player was selfish. And that's selfish on Therrien's part to call out a player like that when he's trying to make a play to win the game. So from a former player's perspective there, it's interesting to see how that opinion can be.
I thought it was interesting, and Arpon Basu after the game was tweeting a ton of stuff, and this is some statistics he was throwing out there heading into Friday night's game. Okay, so he said Subban was on the ice for 61% of the Montreal Canadiens' goals. Okay, so that's 95 goals out of the 155 that they've scored, which puts him 5th in the league. So the other players ahead of him are Erik Karlsson, Klingberg, Kane, and Ben. Those are the only players ahead of him. And Dallas is 1st in goals for in the league. Chicago is 3rd in goals for. And Ottawa is 7th in goals for in the league. So that just goes to show you the impact PK Subban has on the team. And that's the guy that he chooses to call out.
Yeah, I mean, PK Subban's 4th in the NHL in assists. I mean, and just to go back to your point about Michel Therrien blaming PK Subban, that he lost it. He blew a tire. I mean, there's not much PK Subban could do about that. I mean, he got stripped of the puck prior to, but he's come back on the back check hard if he knows he can get that man. Absolutely. And the only reason he didn't is because he's got the 3-man down low and he's got to take the point now.
Yep.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's a complete and utter breakdown by Max Pacioretty and Jacob Delarose.
So let's move on.
And then you're going out and you're going to blame PK Subban who blew a tire. I mean,
and how many times has he made that play too? Like going cross blue line like that. Like that's his bread and butter. And 99 times out of 100 he does it, and that's why we love him. So are you going to ask him to not make that play again? Absolutely not.
So do you think Michel Therrien can call out PK Subban because he knows he can? Because he knows that PK Subban can take it? Because he knows he's not a fragile individual? Because he knows that he'll bounce back and play better? Like I'll give you the example of Nathan Beaulieu. He scratches Nathan Beaulieu, everybody puts their hands up in arms, but every single time Beaulieu gets scratched, he comes back with a vengeance. He plays the best hockey he's played all season long. Do you think Michel Therrien does that to PK Subban to get him going? Not to say that PK Subban isn't going yet, but just like you saw the game he had Friday night. He took over the game. That's the kind of player he is, and he has that ability. Do you think Michel Therrien uses it as a tactic?
I honestly have no idea what Michel Therrien is trying to do at this juncture in his time in Montreal. I just don't think PK Subban is the type of player that needs to be told what he has to do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think that the performance he had against the Flyers was just kind of you saw everything he took in the media. I mean, that was ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I saw a picture. I believe the Canadian Twitter account tweeted out of the amount of media just around his stall prior to the game. It was ridiculous.
Yep.
And I just think PK Subban really likes to. I just think he shines in the eye of doubt, and he's not. I'm not sure how much Michel Therrien crapping on him had much to do about his performance.
I'll be honest. I don't think Michel Therrien has any clue what he's doing. Like I don't think he called out PK Subban because he knows he can take it. I don't think Michel Therrien likes PK Subban. There, I'll say it. Like I don't think he doesn't like the way PK Subban plays. He doesn't like the fact that PK Subban's a loud personality. He doesn't like the fact that PK Subban I don't think honestly I don't think he likes PK Subban the person. I don't think he does. It's like that low high five thing he used to do with Carey Price. It was like one of Therrien's first things he ever stopped. It was like one of his first coaching decisions was to like stop that whole low five thing because it wasn't a team aspect. I don't think he believes that PK Subban is the team guy that he wants his team to have. And I don't know yet if he's brainwashed. I don't know if Bergevin's been brainwashed by Therrien enough because I'm starting to believe that he has.
Yeah, I mean, you look at the beginning of Michel Therrien, rather, his time, his second stint in Montreal. One of their first, as you said, was to take away the 0005, but another thing was to try and change the way PK Subban played the game.
Yeah.
I mean, they try to really heavily integrate a defensive game and maybe try and overshadow the way he played with the puck.
That's right.
With the puck. So it's just, I think you're right. I don't think Michel Therrien is a fan of PK Subban under any circumstances.
I think it's garbage too. Like I don't know if you guys saw last night, which would be Saturday night, Erik Karlsson with two awful giveaways.
Yeah.
2 awful giveaways that cost him goals.
But no one cares.
No, nobody cares because he's the heart and soul of the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Dave Cameron, the head coach, gets asked at his post game press conferences, "Hey, these things happen, and we know Erik Karlsson's going to bounce back.
100%.
He's human." And that's all that Michel Therrien had to say. Yep. Instead, he chose to just kick PK Subban under the bus, and I think it's absolute garbage.
Big time. Imagine what PK Subban would do on a team like Ottawa that kind of like basically they play pond hockey. Like PK would be easily putting out the same numbers as Karlsson.
I mean, if they took the shackles off of PK's game, kind of what Chris was saying, right? Like when Michel Therrien tried to make him like more defensive minded and sort of the whole like chip the puck sort of mentality and not like make the safe play. That's not the kind of player PK Subban is. I honestly think he is the one. I mean, outside of the Carey Price, he is the one guy the Habs have that is a game changer and that can just solely take over a game on his own.
Yeah, and watching the Senators game last night, prior to the game, I forget who I had on CBC, I believe, they asked Dave Cameron, how do you kind of manage a player like Erik Karlsson? And he just said they govern themselves. And I think that's the perfect approach to take with a guy like PK Subban, who's just such a game changer when he has the puck on his stick. And you're kind of holding him back and kind of limiting his ability to change the game. By playing the way Michel Therrien has been playing him.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, PK Subban has made it clear that he wants to win games.
Yeah.
If PK Subban's carrying the puck through the neutral zone every single game and he's coughing it up 9 times out of 10 and costing the team games, he's not going to be carrying the puck through the neutral zone. He's doing things that he thinks will win the team games. He's not going out there to purposely like lose the puck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
That's 2 minutes left in a tie game when we haven't we're on the longest worst streak of Habs history in 75 years at this point. He's trying to make something happen when a lot of other guys on the team aren't.
Then it's a 1-goal game and you park him on the pine.
Yeah.
He's sitting on the bench. Makes no sense.
Yeah. I mean, this is one of the biggest collapses in professional sports history.
Yes.
And you're looking over at PK Subban trying to teach him a lesson. I don't understand what you're trying to do here. PK Subban's the player who PK Subban is. I mean, that made no sense, but PK Subban is who he is at this point in his career. He's not going to change.
Absolutely.
He's not going to change his game. I don't understand what he was trying to do.
Yeah, I agree, man. I agree. You know what, guys? I'm just glad I got this off my chest on a Sunday morning with you guys.
Honestly, like the night of the Colorado game, I lost sleep over this. I honestly lost sleep. Like Corey and I were texting back and forth, so fired up. It was wild.
Hashtag pillow talk.
Hashtag pillow talk. You heard it here first.
Thanks a lot for joining us this morning, Chris?
Thanks for having me. Keep up the great work, guys.
Hey, thanks a lot, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
All right, that was Chris Nardella again. Thanks again, Chris, for joining us. I like that. He got heated. It's something you and I don't necessarily do as much. I don't know why. I think it's because we're just like, maybe we're just gentle by nature. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, not that Chris isn't gentle by nature, because for all I know, he is.
Could be a big teddy bear for all we know.
It could be. But that was a fun little chat.
Yeah, and so we're gonna jump right into Max Pacioretty, Captain Patches. This summer, when the captain was named, it was kind of up in the air before. It was either going to be Max or PK. A lot of people had opinions on it, who would be the better captain. One's obviously a bit more calm and reserved, more of a quiet leader. The other one is PK, who obviously speaks his mind, is a lot more expressive. What do you think? Now that we're a bit deeper into the season, do you think Pacioretty has shown enough as a captain?
Well, before we get into that debate, what was your take on, before they named the captain, who did you want to see as a captain?
Honestly, I wanted to see PK, but like I'm just like gonna be.
I didn't really care.
Yeah.
To be honest, like I just didn't care. I was like, the Habs have so many choices for who could be captain. Like I was just like, you know what I mean? Like they had the whole, like you could have argued Markov, you could have argued Buchanan, you could have argued Pacioretty, you could have argued Subban. To me, the two front runners were PK and Pacioretty, as you mentioned.
Honestly, the one guy you didn't mention there who was kind of in the mix,
Gallagher.
Yeah, Gallagher. Who actually now, if decision was today, I'd have a hard time not picking Gallagher, especially because his game this season has got like, at least before he got hurt, his production was way up. Yeah, he was close to a point a game, and he plays with a ton of heart. But he'll always be a leader on this team, no matter what.
That's right. So let's talk about Max and go back to your original.
Go back to Max, yeah.
So let me preface this with the fact that I love Max Pacioretty. Okay, like I love Max Pacioretty as a hockey player and what he brings to the Montreal Canadiens as a hockey player. But there are some qualities about him that I just can't figure out, and probably there are some that have nothing to do with him being a good or not so good captain. Those qualities are the fact that he's no fun.
He such a buzzkill.
He looks like he has no fun whatsoever. He's monotone. Like when he's talking, I'm like, dude, like, are you even alive at this moment? Like you have no personality. You know what I mean? Like he has none. He never breaks script. He's never off script. Like he's always whatever he's told to say, he says, and you can just tell by the way he answers questions. Yeah. And it feels like he only has fun with two people on the team. Like it seems like he only likes two people, and that's Therrien and Weiss. It looks like those are maybe the two only guys that he likes. And Weiss is like even a bit of a stretch. Like even when you see, this is a dumb, like it has nothing to do with analysis, but I'm saying like this has nothing to do with his ability as captain. When you see the team like posting pictures from like when they're out like having dinner, like that PK photo from the week, like Max is never there.
Never.
He's never there.
Honestly,
I get like he's got a young child and stuff, but when they're on roadies, like you'd think he might go out, no? Even
remember last year there was that McDonald's commercial where it's like the Max 67 burger, and he's in Boston and he's like showing off the burger. He was even boring in that.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was like that could have been such a fun commercial, like like getting Bruins fans to like your burger because while you're a Hab, like. It was a boring commercial. Like it was kind of funny. Like I thought it was funny only because I'm a Habs fan. If I wasn't a Habs fan, I'd be like, "Wow, what a buzzkill that guy is."
Yeah, but so with all that said, I don't think he's the wrong choice for captain. We all know that he's a quiet leader. We knew that heading into the season. I knew going in, and I think other people know, and we know this now, that Max Pacioretty isn't one of those like game-changing He's not one of those like game changers. We had a bit of this discussion with Chris, just briefly. Is like PK Subban is the game changer. He's the guy who can take over any game, and Max Pacioretty doesn't have that ability. He can do it on certain plays, but he can't just take over a game. You know what I mean? Like he's a prolific goal scorer. I still believe it, and he can still put up 35, and I can see him hitting 40 goals a year if we can actually get him somebody to play with.
Absolutely.
But Max Pacioretty is not the guy who's going to take over the game. He's a quiet leader. I'm not in the dressing room, so I have no idea whether he's feuding with PK, whether like just how quiet of a leader he is. He tries to lead with his play. So I'm not going to sit here and say that he's not the guy for the captaincy. And even what I said before, like him staying on script and stuff, those are some qualities that captains need to do. Like Jonathan Toews stays on script.
It's not always a bad thing, but it's nice to see sometimes like a guy like Subban, and there's a couple other guys in the league, not a lot of guys, but there's a few other guys in the league that when you hear them speak, you know it's what they feel. And generally that's going to be on script, more or less. But like when they're you could hear the emotion, you can sense the emotion in their voices, and you just don't see that with Max. And like he brings a lot, like you said, a lot of good qualities. He's a good last year. I think one of the things that helped him become the captain was his defensive game has improved a lot since he came into the league last year, and like he's become like a good penalty killer.
He does it all.
He's a complete player. He is a complete player, which is an important aspect for a captain to be.
That's right. No, I fully agree with you. I don't think he's the wrong choice. I just think that people right now are having a hard time believing in Max Pacioretty because he's the monotone guy.
Yep.
He's never off script.
Yep.
He's apparently feuding with PK Subban.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Which I don't believe for a second, but I mean, what do I know?
I kind of do.
You kind of do, yeah. I think it's very possible.
Even him coming out and defending PK Subban Friday after practice and saying like I had responsibilities on the 3-on-3, like that stuff is all like the comp. Like to me, that's all the comps department. It's like he had the opportunity to step up in front of the media after the whole PK incident, and I know there's some like stuff out there saying that like apparently he did. I don't buy that for a second.
Yeah, no, for sure. And like that kind of goes back to always sticking to the script. So when you always like you're very like careful of the crafted messages, you never know like is this what he really feels, or is this what the team wants him to say, or is this what he knows he should say?
Exactly.
Like it's like you lose kind of lose that credibility as far as like when you stick up for a teammate. Are you sticking up for him because you have to, or because you're actually sticking up for him? And I don't like. It's hard to say. Like he did say, like he screwed up on the 3-on-3, which is true. Yeah. But yeah, no, I'm with you to an extent on that. I still don't really think there's a feud, but again, that's my uneducated take on it. So
I don't know if there's a feud. I just don't think they like each other.
Yeah,
like, they're not the same.
They wouldn't be best buds.
No. Okay, so let's talk about David Desharnais.
Yeah, so we got a question on Twitter from @JusticeLawDev, kind of stealing the throne from me here. I just jumped in the gun
totally cool,
here.
Man. Just go with the flow.
He was asking if Desharnais detractors are right. Now that he's out for 3 weeks with a broken foot, I believe.
Yeah.
So now that he's out, the Habs play should improve while he's out, right? That's his question. Good question. I know neither of us are big Desharnais supporters in the sense of how he's used.
Right.
And now, so he's out for 3 weeks, and what happens? Galchenyuk, he's going to get some time at center, right? Wrong. Jacob Delarose getting tons of center ice minutes on the third line, and Galchenyuk, all fair enough, like that line with Plekanec has been playing quite well overall.
Yeah, but Delarose had more minutes, I think, than any other forward on Wednesday night.
Yeah, so that night, that was against the Avalanche, right? And so that third line with call-up Delarose was our de facto number one line with all the minutes played.
Yep. So let's go back to Justice Law Dev's question. I've never said... Okay, I probably have said this. Let's just say Desharnais. Okay, Desharnais can be an effective hockey player. Could maybe be an effective hockey player.
He has in the past, I would argue.
He's not a top 6 NHL hockey player. And arguably, right now, he's not even an NHL caliber hockey player. So do I think the team is better right now with Desharnais out of the lineup? Yes. The answer is yes, because I think we have effective bottom 6 forwards. And I think, like, to De La Rosa's defense, I thought he played a great game against the Avalanche. I really thought he did. But, you know, I think we have effective bottom 6 forwards. Desharnais is not the guy who's going to be, like, digging pucks out of the corners and winning puck battles. And we've hammered this discussion to death. What I will say is that Eller has looked good alongside Pacioretty.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's looked good every single time Andrew Ghetto's on his wing, whether it's on the third, the second, whatever line you want to call it. So I think from that perspective, I think the Habs are playing better hockey with Desharnais out of the lineup than they are in. Not that I ever want to see a player get injured. That's not what I'm saying.
No.
I just think that the Montreal Canadiens are better with Desharnais out of the lineup than they are with him in.
I think Eller is like the confidence he's shown playing with a player like.
But even the confidence of the power play. Did you see how well they've been moving the puck around?
Absolutely, and he just Eller looks like a different player when he's playing in a scorer's role in the middle of the ice. Like he just looks like he belongs there, and he's gotten barely a sniff in a scoring role, especially at center on the Habs. So it's good to see that. It's good to see that kind of other side of his game because we've talked before again too that like as a third line checking center he's phenomenal, and GMs in the other GMs in the league from other teams have been quoted as saying that that he's one of the top shutdown centers in the league. So to see him have some good potential in a scoring role is awesome to see.
So let me ask you this. I tweeted it Wednesday night. If DD remains injured, okay, which he is now for 3 weeks, let's say the Habs go on a wild winning streak.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they get a bad draft pick, but the organization realizes that they don't need David Desharnais, so they get rid of him in some shape or form, whether it's buying him out, trading him, release, whatever. Okay? Or would you rather that David Desharnais plays, the Habs continue to tank, and they get a good draft pick? What would you rather see happen?
To be honest, I don't. We have to be really far down. Excuse me. We have to be really far down in the standings to really guarantee a top draft pick.
This draft is pretty deep.
It is deep. I'm not a big fan of tanking. Like the way I look at it is with Desharnais out, and the Habs play great.
Yep.
And we lose a top pick, at least that shows us that we have some guys that know what they're like that can play, and that the situation isn't as dire as it seems.
Yep.
It also gives a chance for a guy like De La Rose to get more ice time at the NHL level. All Habs editor-in-chief Rick Stevens was tweeting earlier this week about how he's seen him a lot in St. John's. And he seems to be playing better at the NHL level because doesn't really have as much to play for in the AHL. He's kind of done that already. He's progressed as much as he can at that level, and he seems like an NHL-ready hockey player. And he's so far in this short stint, he's been playing well. He played a good chunk of the season up in the NHL last year on the third line, including the playoffs. He had a lot of minutes in the playoffs. So he's to get some of these guys ice time when Therrien can't go to a Desharnais or can't go to someone else. I think that's a positive, even if it means we get a worse pick out of it. I want to think we have a lot of. I just don't like. I don't like the idea of tanking. I get it, but I just don't.
I don't like the idea of tanking, but to get a generational player,
totally,
I'm okay.
And I get that.
I have a hard time, honestly, I have a really hard time deciding whether I want a generational player or whether I want David Desharnais out of Michel Therrien's hands. But if I'm going to, and I'm going to be unfair here to you because I didn't give this part to you in the question, but let's say Michel Therrien's fired after this season, then I'd rather the Habs continue to lose and get a high draft pick.
That's fair.
Because if Michel Therrien's out of the picture, I don't think anybody uses David Desharnais the way he's being used.
I think Therrien's gone. Like I want to think so. My only worry is that Bergevin, with his relationship with Therrien, says, "Oh well, Carey Price was gone, and that's why I'm going to keep Therrien." I think that's the only scenario.
That is so scary,
but
man.
It's a legit scenario. But I really don't think Therrien is here after the season. I really don't, and I think he's only still here because of what Bergevin said in his press conference. And he's being
Who cares
too proud.
what Bergevin said in his press conference?
I agree. I don't give a damn. I don't give a damn. But I think Bergevin is proud, and he said no matter what happens, like he said specifically when he was asked, like if the Habs don't win another game this season, Therrien is still the coach for the rest of the year. That was a
direct quote.
It was almost like word for word. I can't remember the exact, but it was basically like, no matter what happens.
That's garbage. I don't care what he said in that press conference. He's got to get rid of this guy, especially after throwing PK under the bus. That's such garbage, man.
Absolutely.
I can't believe this guy's going to ride out the rest of the season. I don't care who they put in there in the interim. I don't, you know what I mean? If they're eyeing somebody at the end of the season, so be it. That's fine. Just throw somebody in there in the interim. I don't care who it is.
No,
just get that toxicity out of here, man. Just get it out of here.
And then just getting some of these younger players actual legitimate ice time and in roles that they can flourish in. Now is the time. Try Galchenyuk. The rest of the season, try Gal. I sound like a broken record.
There's still 20 games left or something like that.
Put him at center. And you know what? Maybe we go on a run.
There's still 22 games left or something like that, man. Let's just roll the dice. This guy is so frustrating, man.
I know.
He's so frustrating.
He's playing not to lose, and like Bergevin said, that's how you lose.
Yeah, which is something we probably should have brought up in that whole PK Subban argument. Yeah. But anyway, let's move on to this next topic. Since you're running the show, just run it.
All right, defenseman Gilbert. I guess I want to say it. I'm hoping it was because he's on showcase mode for the trade deadline. But Tom Gilbert and Andre Markov had more ice time than PK Subban against the Colorado Avalanche. And let's just go back to the whole idea that Subban was thrown under the bus when he's getting second pairing minutes, and he's our best defenseman, bar none. So no questions asked. Some people would argue, but whatever. Gilbert leading Habs in ice time Wednesday night. How do you feel about that?
Marc, I don't even want to talk about it. I don't even want to talk about it, man. I'm that upset about it. I was so rattled. I don't know if I was losing more sleep over the fact that PK Subban got benched or that Tom Gilbert was leading all the Habs in ice time. It made me so mad. I don't care if you're showcasing this guy. Playing him is losing games. You're losing games if you put Tom Gilbert out there more than any other player. Think about that for a second, dude.
That's
just
basically
think about it for a second. PK Subban. PK Subban, okay? The first two power plays of the game, I think he had the first shift, and all season long he's been playing a minute and a half, 2 minutes of each power play. He got yanked off of 45 seconds in to throw Tom Gilbert out over the bench. Okay? That's what happened. He pulled Subban off the ice to throw Gilbert on there. If you're showcasing Gilbert, sure, give him some PP time. Give him a second wave, but don't pull PK Subban off. Throw him out there with Subban.
Yeah.
If PK Subban, we talked about this with Chris. PK Subban has been on the ice for 61% of the Habs goals. You want to showcase Tom Gilbert? Put on PK Subban. Don't take PK Subban off the ice to play Gilbert. It makes no sense to me. I know you like putting PK with Markov. I get it. But figure out a way to get Tom Gilbert on the ice with PK Subban, even if it's on the power play. Stop pulling him off the ice, because putting Gilbert with Nate Beaulieu on the power play, I don't know, man.
Yeah.
I don't know. It made me so mad, the fact that Gilbert led the team in ice time.
Yeah.
I get they're showcasing him for the deadline, whatever.
They better be. If that's not what it is, then
he's injured now, right? Yeah, we don't know what the extent of the injury is now, but now he's gone out and gotten hurt. So we don't even know if we can deal him at this point.
Yeah.
If he's hurt more than what's the deadline? The deadline's in a week.
Yeah, a week and a day.
So there you go. If he's not
a week from when this will be live, it'll be the deadline.
So let's say his injury's day to day. If he gets back into a game or two, then hopefully he can get back into a game or two, because teams might be a little hesitant.
Absolutely.
What if he, you know what I mean? If his ankle's messed up, how is he going to be down the stretch? I don't know.
If he doesn't play before the deadline, I don't see us dealing him. He's not.
He's
not that good. He's not that good to begin with.
Anyway, the whole defensive lineup thing's bothering me. The fact that Barberio's still sitting really irks me. The lack of foot speed right now with Petrie injured is not looking good on our defensive core. Emelin and Pattern look terrible together. They look awful together, man. And Emelin has gone. He's reverted back to the garbage Emelin that we're all used to.
Yeah.
He's hesitating with the puck. Like you said, I think on one of our first episodes, it's like when Emelin's not confident, his hands are like stones.
Yeah.
Man. It's like he's playing with like bricks in his wrists, and that's how he looks right now.
Absolutely.
There's been a couple times, and I think it's like one or two times in the last couple of games where both Pattern and Emelin have gone for like a crushing hit at the same time, like on the same shift. Like Pattern will take a guy into the boards, and then the puck will go down into the corner. And then Emelin goes and takes that guy out, and the whole middle of the ice is like taken
wide open.
Yeah. I don't know. There's just been the whole Pattern Emelin thing's not working. That's another poor coaching decision. Barberio sitting in the press box really just does not bode well with.
And that's a guy that can help a lot with our power play. Like if you can have Tom Gilbert on the power play or Barberio on the power play. That's an easy.
Yeah,
answer,
and I think they're just showcasing Gilbert, and that's fine.
Yeah.
But just find a way for Gilbert to play with PK Subban. That's the bottom line. We got to move on.
Yeah.
Habs. Let's talk about Habs prospects. Okay.
All right.
So Craig Button came out with the top 50. The only Habs player in the top 50 was Arturi Lehkonen.
Yep.
Chris H. Still don't know how to say his last name. Chris H.
Friend of the show.
Chris H. Sickest flow in hockey.
Yeah. Second sickest.
Next to Chris H. is actually in Sweden right now. He went out to go see Lehkonen play and actually did an interview with him. So you can go on allhabs.net and check out that interview. It's actually quite interesting. A couple of things that I got from the interview and from reading the article. The first one was he started the game playing on a line with Joey Crab.
Man, I was going to bring that up too. I
love Joey Crab, and I was like, had no idea where he was playing.
That's so funny.
Thank you, Chris H.
Just answering the questions you didn't even know needed answers.
Didn't even know we needed an answer to.
Man, you were maybe the only one who had that question to ask.
Thanks. He also speaks English very well, Lehkonen. Like he speaks fluently.
Yeah.
In English, like it wasn't hard to understand a word. I liked what he said about Koivu, how like he really idolizes what Koivu brought to the team, but that he wants to pave his own path to the Habs organization. That he eventually wants to come to North America. Anyway, and the other interesting thing I thought, and I don't know if you picked up on this, but he said his favorite player was Jeff Carter because he was a big Flyers fan and because he had a sick wrister.
Yeah, I heard that he had a sick wrister. Was by far my favorite quote.
I LOL'd pretty hard at that.
Yeah,
did you watch the interview and stuff? Yeah.
Yeah, I listened to that, and also I found the interview with Lehkonen's coach was also interesting. Kind of asked him about what Lehkonen needs to do to improve and what he's solid at already. And the coach mentioned he has a pretty good two-way game. He's very mature. And he's improved a lot since he's a young kid and he's been playing pro for a little while already. And his strongest aspect is his smarts, his hockey intelligence, which is awesome. You can't really teach that sort of thing.
No.
The one thing that the coach mentioned he needs to work on, and Lehkonen mentioned the same thing, was his size and his strength.
Uh-huh.
That's something, I think it goes back to what Lehkonen said in the interview with Chris. Like, he's going to make sure he's ready before he comes to the NHL and tries to play the North American game. Like, I think that's probably a big factor, is he wants to make sure he's strong enough and big enough to play the North American game. So that was interesting to see. Both the coach and player were pretty much on the same page. Which is good to see. And
Galchenyuk's a good example of bulking up, eh?
Yeah.
Like, he did a lot of bulking in the offseason.
Absolutely. So he could play center.
So Craig Button Craig Button also went through the top 5 for each team.
Yep.
So I'll read those out for you here. Nikita Sherbak.
Yep.
Michael McCarron, Morgan Ellis, Noah Juleson, and then obviously Arturi Lehkonen. So let's just go through them quickly, all right?
Yep. Nikita
Sherbak, injury-riddled season, seems to be pouring it on a little more now.
Yeah.
Looking better. He could have been, I think if he didn't have an injury-filled season, he would have been higher up on this list.
Literally Took the words out of my mouth. Literally what I had written down.
And then we're just
one thing back to Sherbak. One thing is he's been playing a bit of center. He was drafted as a winger, which I don't know if his future in the NHL is as a centerman, but having that being able to play a few different positions and like learning maybe a bit more of a defensive game at the center position in the A, I think is a good thing. That's positive.
Agreed. And just to give a full caveat here, like all Habs does a really good job covering the St. John's Ice Caps. Absolutely. And does a good job of covering prospects just in general. Given just like Chris H going over to Sweden and getting us one-on-one with Lehkonen and the St. John Ice Caps, you can get to the All Habs coverage through allhabs.net of the St. John's Ice Caps, St. John's Hockey Report. So do what you can to follow them because this is literally where I get all my information of the stuff that I'm about to say. So Mike McCarron, obviously a big bounce back year for him. Yeah. There's not much else to say other than his size and grit and scoring ability is something that the Habs have been looking for down the middle of the ice for decades. And if he turns out to be the prospect that people are hoping he can be now that we've seen what he can do in pro hockey and what he has been doing, that's fantastic. And wouldn't it be nice to see, like, he's 20 years old, man, and he still has so much to learn. He's
still learning how to use his long limbs at this point. Like, he just needs to grow in, like, get used to his big body, and I think I hope he's, like, can figure out, like, put it all together, because with that size, like, I think he's going to be an NHL hockey player, period. It's whether or not he can put the tools together. He will be the difference between him being a bottom six forward or, like, a top end, top six, like, big scoring forward that is just a power forward beast that sits in front of the net and like pots tons of ugly genos and just does work.
Agreed. So like let's even hypothetically, and we'll get into this with anyway. I'll save that for my trade deadline talk. All right. Morgan Ellis was next on the list. This is a guy that really I followed through the through the All Habs coverage through St. John's Ice Caps. Is Morgan Ellis, somebody who played in the ECHL last year. People were thinking maybe he wasn't going to pan out as a prospect. Now at 23, and some defensemen developed late. Absolutely. At 23, he represented the Ice Caps at the AHL All-Star Game along with Mike McCarron. And he's apparently looked great this year. So, I mean, that's a positive too. Maybe he's some depth that the Habs could look for on the back end. At a reasonable price next season. Who knows?
Absolutely. He's a bit of a like you said, a bit of a late bloomer. So you never really know if like maybe this is kind of a one-off season. It's tough to say, but I'm definitely interested in following his development over the next year.
Exactly. Exactly. So next on the list was Noah Juleson. He's our first round pick from this season. Yeah. Last season, however you want to say it. He's playing in the WHL, I believe, eh?
Yeah, for the Silver Tips or Silver Backs or Silver something.
Yeah,
Everett. We'll go with Everett.
Everett, which is where Sherbak played, I believe, eh?
I think so.
They were teammates.
Yeah.
He's got offensive upside. He sort of plays a gritty game, sort of like Beaulieu was when they drafted him, right? Like he's got that offensive instinct, plays with an edge, that kind of thing. So it'll be interesting to see what he ends up being. And then Lehkonen, we've kind of already talked about.
Back to Juleson a little bit. He's a right-handed shot, which is kind of a sought-after thing on the blue line in the NHL. And that's, I think, with Subban and Petrie already kind of not holding down the top two spots on our blue line, it kind of gives, it's like the urgency isn't there to rush a guy like Juleson.
Of course. And you want a defenseman,
which is good.
You want a defenseman of that nature to play pro hockey too, like they did with Beaulieu, right? Like they're going to take their time with them.
Absolutely. Give them minutes in the AHL and let them develop. And like Juleson isn't the guy that's going to help us next year, but 2 or 3 years from now when we're hopefully contending.
So where do you rate the Habs prospect pool? Like, do you think they like where do you think it's going?
I don't think it's not super deep. But I think we have a couple other guys that weren't mentioned, like Charles Hudon, who's pretty close to NHL ready. is a real good hockey player. He's a little on the small side, but he can he skate? He looks like he has a ton of awareness. He's a guy that I think I would like to see get more of a shot this year before the season ends at the NHL level. I don't think we have like a real deep system, but we do have a few guys like the guys that we listed there, and who don't. I think there's some real gems that could pan out.
I'm personally worried about the prospect pool. I don't know where it's going. I know they're trying to get. I think what they're trying to do is get the high end skill through the draft. I think like the top 6 players that Bergevin is like able to acquire, or not the bottom 6 players that Bergevin seems to be able to acquire through a variety of methods. Look at Paul Byron this year on waivers and just what he's been able to do and come in. So I think they're really like they're trying to pull those diamonds in the rough, as you said. You know what I mean? Not that players with high end offensive skill. Like Charles Hudon has got that offensive prowess. Who wasn't. I think he was a 3rd round pick.
Yeah.
And you get, like Nikita Sherbak's got that like high end sort of skill, but he was a 1st round pick, obviously. But like you said, it's not deep. And what really concerns me the most is Lefebvre's ability to develop, and Therrien's ability to develop. Like I don't think if Therrien is our coach, I completely disagree with you in bringing Charles Hudon up.
That's
not that
totally fair.
Not that he's going to develop better under Lefebvre. I just think he's going to play on the top.
He's at least going to get more ice time.
So play him there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I don't want to see Charles Hudon play 4th line minutes in the NHL for the rest of the season. No, I don't want to see it.
That's fair.
Period. All right.
Totally fair. All right, kind of on the jumping off the prospect pool because it's we're getting close, as we mentioned, a week away from the deadline.
Yeah.
Good way to pick up draft picks if you're not doing so hot. Obviously, sell some of your guys.
Yep.
There's been a lot of chatter about Dale Weiss. Not only teams being interested, but it was reported that traction on a new contract hasn't really started or gained any significant momentum.
Yep.
So it's looking like he's going to move.
Yep.
And honestly, I've been thinking a lot about this because Weiss has been a guy who, well, he's been pretty invisible for the last little while, much like most Habs. But he's been a guy who's like in the playoffs has been big for us in the past. When he's playing his game, he plays very like aggressive, very fast. He throws his body around. But that's all well and good. But we're not going to make the playoffs. We're probably not going to make the playoffs this year, and he has value at the deadline. So I think moving him would be a great decision for the Habs.
I don't think the Habs have a choice but to move.
I think so. I think you're right,
and I think it's the right decision because next season, like heading into next season, like Daniel Carr is the perfect guy to fill the 3rd line role that Dale Weiss would play. So it's like to me, Weiss is totally expendable. We've Devontae Smith-Pelly still under contract. He's the guy that like can also play Weiss's role.
Not to mention, bottom 6 guys aren't the guys you want to be spending a lot of cap space on. Weiss is going to get a raise because of how like he's slowed down a lot. He started the season. He's not going to make just $1 million, especially if he hits the market. He'll probably make, I don't know, I'm just guessing, but like $1.5–2 million on the open market. I could see it, and that's not the type like he's as good as he is and as good as he's been for us. He's a more replaceable player, like with a Daniel Carr. Like good teams, they spend their money on their top 6, their skill guys, and then like the bottom 6 guys, the bottom 3 guys, they're more rotating parts.
I don't know that we get a 2nd round pick for him. I'll just say if we get offered a 2nd round pick for him, you don't think about it.
No,
you just take.
You just take it and walk back slowly away.
Yep. Yeah.
No, big time.
So there's also Fleischmann. Thomas Fleischmann's an expiring contract that could be moving. Which is another thing that boggles my mind about the whole Gilbert going up for the trade value thing. Why is Fleischmann scratched?
Yeah, I know.
Why is Fleischmann scratched? If you're trying to up the value of your, you know what I mean? I don't know if Bergevin's already tried shopping him. People are like, I have no interest in Thomas Fleischmann. I
think that could be a factor because I know like Fleischmann's looked pretty slow lately, and that's not helping his value. It's not helping his value at all. Any team that wants to be able to like play fast hockey in the playoffs, I'm not sure. Like Fleischmann's play from the beginning of the year to now has really dropped off.
But he is experienced and he is depth.
Absolutely, and he's cheap. If a team's real close to the cap, like his prorated hit would be so low at the deadline because his full season contract's like $750K.
Yeah.
which is wild.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, if we get nothing for him, like he doesn't know anything to the Habs, we don't know anything to him.
No.
It was just like it was a PTO,
Yeah.
signed him, whatever. Like
Absolutely.
it's just one of those things where if we get anything for him, great. If not, whatever.
And if we can get something for him, it opens up a spot where a young guy can get more ice time, which is a positive as well.
Yep. So go ahead.
So I was just gonna say, so that's a couple guys we might be selling. Do you have anyone
there's also Gilbert and Byron are the other two expiring contracts. But seems like like we've already talked about Gilbert.
Yeah.
Seems like Byron is a guy that they're looking to hold on to based on reports that I've seen. I think so too. Like he brings a lot to the table. Yeah. But another name that I've heard out there based on like stuff that credible people are tweeting about is Emelin. People are actually calling about Emelin. That's a difficult trade to make because he has the no trade clause, so we'd have to agree where he goes until I believe July 1 of this year, where the limited no trade kicks in for Emelin. Or is that next season? I think it's this season though. I
think so. I hope it's.
But anyway, the Habs need to do what they can, and this is probably a good lead up into the next piece of like who are some people that they could go after. But the Habs have the most expensive D in the league.
Yeah.
In the league, they have the most expensive D, and it's not that impressive. If they can find a way to move Emelin's $4.1 million, you have to take it.
Absolutely.
I don't care what you get back because he's not, and we said this last episode, he is not a game changer. He's not a guy that's going to take over the game, and he makes far too much money. Jeff Petrie it looks like he makes too much money as far as I'm concerned now, but he's a guy that we're not going to be able to move.
No.
Like, Emelin is the guy you got to get rid of. Petrie is more the type of player that can move the puck, can play on the power play. He can also kill penalties. Emelin can only play the PK. That he's even slow at in the corner with the battles. Positionally, he's not very sound. Like I just, to me, if you can move him, you move him, and you create some cap space.
Absolutely. So jumping off that, we got a tweet also from @Peter Wonka.
Peter Wonka from the Chocolate Factory.
I believe Peter Wonka of Chocolate Factory fame. Who should the Canadians part with? And so we've already touched on that. And who should they bring in to make the team better next year? So that's an interesting. I kind of like how Peter worded that because how to make the team better for next year. Like we're not talking rentals because I think we're past that.
Okay,
so we want players that. Do you have any suggestions?
Well, you hit me with some.
All right, here's a few. I'm just gonna skip the UFAs because that's
Let's go. Let's talk contracts because I don't think Bergevin goes out and gets an expiring contract.
I don't think so.
I don't think he does.
Kirby Reichel from Columbus. There was talk earlier in the year about that. Big body, a lot of upside.
He's the type of guy that sort of plays Therrien's type game too. Right?
Another guy who can play both ways, Matt Reed from Philly. I was speaking to Philadelphia Flyers insider @Matty Franchise. That's franchise with a Z. Good friend of the show.
Matty Franchise.
Good friend of the show. Also, he's got great gambling insight. Sports gambling insight, FYI. He's fast. His hot take. His take on Matt Reed is he's fast and can score, but he can be invisible in lots of games. And he's also he's scored on the penalty kill as well. So he plays a little bit of a 2-way game. Okay. So that's a smaller guy, but
to me, I'm like, why do we need a guy like that?
Yeah, fair enough.
Like, because I'm like, we have so many bottom six guys who are invisible some games, visible other games, and can kill penalties. Like we have so many of them.
For sure. So here's two guys that I find super intriguing. Not really guys that I've seen a lot of chatter trade wise, so no idea if they're available or what. Yep. So two guys. One of them from the New York Islanders. I know there's a lot of Pozo talk, but Josh Bailey.
I love Josh Bailey.
Man, so
always love Josh Bailey.
He makes 3.3 through 2018 season. So a couple of years on a friendly contract. Yeah. He can play pretty much anywhere, any forward position. Mostly plays on the wing, but he also has played center in the past.
He can play center, yeah.
Yeah, and he's good 2-way game, and he's putting up points. My other one is Yannick.
How old is Josh Bailey? 26, 25?
He's in his 20s. He's I
Late
think
teens, though? I think he's getting
mid to late,
27. Okay. Anyway,
mid to late
continue.
20s.
Sorry, I cut you off in your goal.
It's all good. So, and my other one, Yannick Hansen from Vancouver, hasn't I haven't been following the Canucks situation a lot, other than to know that they're not exactly world beaters this year. Yannick Hansen's 29. He's under contract for another 2 years at only 2.5 per. He has 17 goals this year, none of which on the power play. Like, he gets 0 power play time, so that's pretty solid. His Corsi for percentage is just under 50. His 2.3 points per 60, which is in about the top 30 of the league at even strength.
Who is he playing with? Do you know?
To be honest, I'm not 100% sure. Like, if he's playing with the Sedins, then I maybe...
He's a guy that he's sort of like that Dale Weese that they throw up and down the lineup.
Yeah.
That they sort of like, you know what I mean? And I know he's had some success in Vancouver playing with the Sedins, but to me, he's like a guy where I'm like, at 29 years old with term, how many wingers that sort of go bottom 6, top 6, like how many more of those guys do we need? Sort of going back to the Reichel argument the Reed argument of
fair.
How many more of these guys do we need? That you know what I mean?
And the question too is like, how much does he play with the Sedins? Because he's not going to have those types of line mates in Montreal.
Well, that's it.
If that's the case, then those stats don't really hold as much water.
Yeah, one guy I thought was interesting was Cam Atkinson, 26 years old. He's making 3.5 for the next 2 seasons after this season, which is a friendly enough cap hit.
Yeah.
He's got at even strength 2.06 points per 60 in 58 games played this year, which is pretty darn good. Playing alongside like Brandon Dubinsky, guys like Boone Jenner and Scotty Hartnell, like that's pretty good. 13 even strength goals and 19 goals on the year, so he can play the power play. I don't know. To me, he's a smallish guy, but he's not afraid to play the way that Therrien wants. He can score goals. Like goal scoring is what we need. And I wrote an article last week on allhabs.net about what the Habs' plan should be, and I talked about going after a guy with term, but I mostly talked about a top 6 forward. And I know everybody says top 6 forward, and the problem is that everybody in this league needs top 6 forwards. Everybody does. So they're hard to come by. So it's
and
guys.
The price is high.
It's guys like you and I were just talking about that they kind of have to target.
Yep.
They can hope that they can rotate into the top 6 and get some goal scoring because the Habs just can't score goals. They just can't. And I think, and even as I was thinking of Cam Atkinson, I'm like, man, if Sven Andrighetto continues to do what he's doing in a top 6 role, then why are we going out and getting another like why do the Habs need Cam Atkinson if they can have Sven Andrighetto in that role at 1, a cheaper price, and 2, just as effective.
Yep.
You know what I mean? A smallish guy who can skate hard. Like, I don't know if you've noticed the amount of hits that Andrighetto's been throwing around, but to me, that's the biggest difference between him and other small players like Desharnais, who like aren't afraid to like jab it up in the corners and make the plays to get the puck to where it needs to be.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of where I am with everything.
Yeah, for sure. And then, so in the summer, there could be, like, kind of going off script here. In the summer, there could be some interesting guys from the UFA perspective. I'm not sure, depending on how the season ends, how attractive Montreal is going to be for a UFA. Yeah. But obviously, Andrew Ladd in Winnipeg, he's a big boy, and he's not just like he puts up points, but he's not just like a finesse guy. So I think he would mesh well. And then Bodker and Eriksson, Michael Bodker from Phoenix or Arizona, if he's available, I think he's going to get paid pretty well.
He's going to get paid, man.
And the other one, too, is Louis Eriksson from Boston. We're not going to get him in a trade because he's, A pending UFA, and B, he's in Boston. But he's a solid two-way guy. My only worry being that he was a bit subpar in Boston until he was on a contract year.
Exactly. I was just going to say that. The same with Bodker can be put in that circle too. But before we move on, I will say in the article I wrote a lot about the UFAs and I wrote a lot about who the Habs should be targeting if they go for a top 6. And I think it's somebody that's versatile, can play the wing and can play center, sort of like Galchenyuk, right? Because Plekanec is a lock in the top 6 to play center. Okay, so then you've got one other center position. If Galchenyuk's not playing it, you need a guy. If Galchenyuk's going to stay on the wing with Plekanec, and you need a guy to play center. And if they do end up moving Galchenyuk down to the second line or first line center position, then you need a guy to jump over the wing.
Yeah, big time.
So you need somebody who's versatile. Like I know Eric Stahl is probably unrealistic from a money perspective too, but that again goes back to the importance of trying to get rid of Emelin or dumping some contracts on the back end, which is like where guys like Pattern can come into play, where Barbario is going to come into play to be able to step into the lineup, right?
Yeah.
That's why we need to start dumping some of those poor contracts.
Yeah, if we can dump Emelin and or Desharnais, that's either or both. Big chunk of money available all of a sudden for a free agent or to make.
I don't see anybody trading for a Desharnais. I could see an Emelin being traded for like people need depth on the back end, but $4 million is a lot to.
It's a lot to swallow.
Suck in, but if you can get rid of a guy like that for an expiring contract, you're laughing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'll just promo before we move on to the end of the segment. Let's just promo the trade deadline hot take again.
Yeah,
that's going to happen next Monday. We hope to get it up Monday night after the trade deadline passes. We're going to have the most neutral hockey fan, Tom Rockburn. On the only reason we call him Tom, by the way, is because when we text Tim, it autocorrects to Tom all the time. For some reason.
He's actually Tom Rockburn in my phone now. So when I search for his contact, I always search for Tim.
He's Sporty Spice in my phone because he's so athletic.
He's so athletic.
Anyway, bring us home, Scoots.
All right, so that just about does it for episode 4, name to be determined, as mentioned earlier. Don't forget, you can follow us on Twitter.
Yep.
You can follow us on Twitter at xcorydx.
That's me.
At LaScooter. Subscribe to us on YouTube.
Yep.
Subscribe to us on iTunes.
Yep.
Check us out on allhabs.net.
Yep. Send your questions.
Send your questions. Yeah, we had a couple good questions this week, which was awesome. Send your questions. Even going into the trade deadline, if a move happens or something happens at the deadline, you want us to bring it up in our hot take, feel free to drop us a line. And
send us an email or a tweet.
Send us an email
at habsbanter@gmail.com. Yes. And we need some ideas for the pregame warm-up.
Please give us ideas. We suck.
We suck.
We suck. We suck so much we both know what we say at the same time.
Okay, bye.
All right.